My cheating ex-husband demanded his mistress witness the birth of my son. The tiny blue booties sat on the coffee table, a perfect, innocent pair. I'd spent the last 3 weeks knitting them, my swollen belly a convenient shelf for the yarn. At 7 months pregnant, every movement was a negotiation, but creating things for my son. Our son, I thought then, was a language of love I understood. The apartment was quiet, filled with the soft glow of a lamp and the faint, sweet scent of the lavender fabric softener I'd used on the new baby clothes. I was happy, genuinely, blissfully happy. Mark was late, but that wasn't unusual. His new project at the architecture firm was demanding. I'd save him a plate of chicken parmesan, his favorite, and I occasionally glanced at the clock, my heart doing a little flutter every time I imagined him walking through the door, his tired face lighting up when he saw the booties. When the key finally turned in the lock, just after 11 p.m., I heaved myself off the sofa with a contented sigh. "You're home," I said, waddling towards the hallway. "Dinner's in the oven." I kept it. I stopped. He wasn't looking at me. He was fumbling with his briefcase, his shoulders tense. But it wasn't his posture that froze the air in my lungs. It was the smell, a cloying, unfamiliar perfume. It was a high-end floral scent, nothing like the clean, subtle cologne I'd bought him for his birthday. It clung to his coat, his hair, his skin. It was the scent of another woman. My entire world tilted on its axis. The warmth in the apartment suddenly felt cold and artificial. "Mark," I asked, my voice barely a whisper, "whose perfume is that?" He finally looked at me, and his eyes, the same eyes I'd fallen in love with, the eyes I hoped our son would inherit, were filled with a guilt so profound it was like a physical blow. He didn't have to say a word. I already knew. "Don't, Elara," he started, his voice rough. "Don't do this now. I am exhausted." "Don't do what?" My voice cracked, rising with a hysteria I couldn't control. "Don't ask why my husband comes home smelling like a stranger? Don't ask why you've been working late 4 nights a week for the past 2 months? Don't ask why you barely touch me anymore. Even when I tell you, I just want you to hold me." Tears were streaming down my face now, hot and angry. I pointed a trembling finger at my belly. "We are having a baby, Mark." "Asson, how could you?" He dropped his briefcase with a thud, the sound echoing in the sudden, deafening silence. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I knew so well. "It's not what you think, isn't it?" I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Then tell me what it is. Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me it's from a coworker who hugged you goodbye. Give me an excuse, any excuse, so I can pretend to believe it." He just stared at me, his silence the most brutal confession of all. Finally, he spoke, and his words shattered what little was left of my heart. "Her name is Chloe," he said quietly, as if admitting it to himself for the first time. "And it's not just a fling. I think I'm in love with her." The plate of chicken parmesan in the oven, the carefully folded baby clothes, the tiny blue booties on the table. It all felt like a scene from someone else's life. The life of a naive, stupid woman who thought love and commitment meant something. "Get out," I whispered, the words tasting like poison. "Elara, let's just talk about this. We could be rational." I said, "Get out." I screamed, the sound tearing from my throat, raw and primal. I grabbed the first thing I could reach, a decorative vase from the side table, and hurled it against the wall next to his head. It shattered into 1,000 pieces, just like our marriage. "Get out of my house. Get out of my life." He looked at me, his face a mixture of shock and fear, and for the first time, I didn't see the man I loved. I saw a stranger, a coward who had built a new life on the ruins of mine. He grabbed his coat, his keys, and without another word, he left. The door clicked shut, and the silence that followed was heavier and more absolute than any I had ever known. I collapsed onto the floor, my hands wrapped protectively around my stomach, and I sobbed. I cried for my broken marriage, for the future that had been stolen from me, and for the innocent little boy inside me who would now be born into a broken home, all because of the cloying, sweet scent of betrayal. The next 6 weeks were a blur of legal paperwork, tearful phone calls to my sister, Maya, and the grim task of dismantling a life I thought was permanent. Lawyers' offices with their mahogany desks and hushed tones became my new reality. I moved through it all like a ghost, my focus narrowed to a single, vital purpose: protecting the baby. He was the only thing that mattered. Mark and I communicated only through emails and lawyers, sterile messages about dividing assets and signing papers. The personal connection was severed, cauterized by the fire of his betrayal. I had boxed up all his belongings and left them in the garage. I was slowly, painfully erasing him from our home. I thought the worst was over. I thought the screaming and the shattering of vases was the climax of our tragedy. I was wrong. It was only the prelude. He called me on a Tuesday afternoon. I was on the floor of the nursery, trying to assemble a crib with an Allen key and a set of confusing instructions, my back aching in protest. The name Mark flashed on my phone screen, and my stomach plummeted. I let it ring, my heart hammering against my ribs. It stopped, then immediately started again. He was determined. With a shaky hand, I answered, "What do you want, Mark?" My voice was cold, devoid of the warmth it once held for him. "Alara, we need to talk," he said. There was a strange urgency in his tone. "Not through lawyers. About the baby. It's important." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a small, neutral cafe downtown. I think a part of me, a small, foolish part, hoped he was going to apologize, that he would show some sliver of the man I had married. He was already there when I arrived, looking tired and thinner than I remembered. He stood up awkwardly as I approached, my large belly leading the way. "You look good," he offered, gesturing for me to sit. "Don't." I cut him off, settling into the booth. "Just say what you need to say. Assembling baby furniture is more appealing than this." He flinched but nodded, getting straight to the point. "I won't be there. For the birth." I stared at him, my mind processing the request. It was a punch to the gut, but not an unexpected one. He was the father. Legally, biologically, he had a claim. The thought of him in that sacred space, the room where I would be at my most vulnerable, made my skin crawl. But I had prepared myself for this. "I'll have to think about it," I said carefully. "My sister Maya will be my birth partner. The room isn't a stadium, Mark." Of course," he said quickly, leaning forward. He looked relieved that I hadn't immediately thrown my water in his face. I can't imagine not being there when my son takes his first breath. It's a moment I have to be a part of." I felt a flicker of something, pity maybe. His selfishness was so profound, he could only frame the birth in terms of his own experience, his own moment. Still, I was about to concede, to say we could discuss logistics later, when he delivered the second fatal blow. "And Chloe feels the same way," he added, his tone suddenly brighter, as if he were sharing wonderful news. "She wants to be there, too, to support me, and to be there for the baby from the very beginning. We both think it's crucial for her to bond with him from day one, since she's going to be in his life permanently." As a stepmom, the world stopped. The clatter of cutlery, the murmur of conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine, it all faded into a roaring in my ears. I stared at him, certain I had misheard, that he could not possibly be sitting here, across from his pregnant, abandoned wife, and suggesting that his mistress attend the birth of their child. The sheer, unmitigated gall of it was breathtaking. "You want to bring your girlfriend," I spat the word like it was poison, "the woman you destroyed our marriage for, into the delivery room while I give birth to our son?" "Don't call her that," he snapped, his face hardening. "Her name is Chloe, and she's going to be my wife. She wants to be a mother to him, Alara. She's excited. This is a chance for all of us to start this new chapter on the right foot, to be mature about it." "Mature?" I let out a laugh that was closer to a sob. "You think bringing the evidence of your affair into my medical space while my body is being torn apart is mature? Are you insane? Are you actually clinically insane?" "You're being hysterical," he said, falling back on the oldest insult in the book. "This isn't just about you. It's about our son. It's about creating a stable, blended family for him. Chloe is part of that family now. My therapist thinks it's a good idea for her to be integrated early." My hand was shaking as I picked up my glass of water. "Let me be perfectly, absolutely clear, Mark. So clear that even your therapist can understand it. You are the father of this child, and that is a biological fact I cannot change. But I'm the one giving birth. It is my body, my medical procedure, and my safe space. You will not bring that woman, that homewrecker, anywhere near me or my son on that day. In fact, after this conversation, I don't even want you there. You have forfeited that right. You're not welcome. Neither of you. Is that mature enough for you?" I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Every eye in the cafe was on us. I didn't care. "You can't do that, Alara," he said, his voice rising. "I have rights." "Try me," I said, my voice dangerously low. Talk to my lawyer. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a crib to build. I'm going to need it to be strong and stable. Everything you're not. I walked out of the cafe, leaving him sitting alone in the booth. The cool air hit my face, but couldn't quell the fire of rage burning inside me. This wasn't over. This was a declaration of war. And I knew, with a terrifying certainty, that a man with that much audacity would not give up easily. Of course, here is the third chapter. The next few weeks felt like living in the tense, heavy air before a thunderstorm. The cafe confrontation had drawn a clear line in the sand, but I knew Mark wouldn't respect it. He was like a spoiled child who had never been told no. He and his lawyer sent a barrage of letters, each one more audacious than the last. They weren't just demanding his presence in the delivery room anymore. They were framing it as a legal right, citing paternal bonding and the child's emotional well-being. They even attached a psychological brief, likely written by Chloe's new best friend, my therapist, about the importance of a unified parental front from birth. The audacity was staggering. They were trying to gaslight me through legal channels. My lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Susan, was my rock. This is posturing, Ilera, she told me over the phone, her voice calm and reassuring. They're trying to bully you. Legally, they don't have a leg to stand on. A hospital delivery room is not a public space. Your medical privacy and your choice of who is present are paramount. They know this. They're hoping you'll get scared and cave. I'm not scared, Susan, I said, pacing my living room. I am furious. It's the principle of it. He brings this woman into our lives, blows everything apart, and now he wants to orchestrate the birth like at a family reunion. We'll shut it down, Susan promised. I'll send a response so clear that a 5-year-old could understand it. We'll also formally notify the hospital of your birth plan and who's authorized to be in the room. They can't just storm the gates. While Susan handled the legal front, I focused on fortifying my personal one. My sister, Maya, moved into my spare room a month before my due date. She was a force of nature, fiercely protective, practical, and with a wicked sense of humor that was like medicine for my bruised spirit. So, let me get this straight, she said one evening as she massaged my swollen ankles. He cheated on you, knocked up the homewrecker, and now wants her to hold your hand while you're in labor? What's next? Is she going to offer to breastfeed? Don't even joke about that. I groaned, but I couldn't help but smile. Having Maya, there was like having a shield. The real surprise came a week later. I received a message on social media from a name I didn't recognize. Jessica. The profile picture was of a smiling woman with 2 young children. The message was short and cryptic. I think we need to talk. It's about Mark and Chloe. My first instinct was to delete it. It felt like a trap, another manipulation. But curiosity, a nagging, insistent feeling made me hesitate. I clicked on her profile. We had one mutual friend, a woman who had worked with Mark at his old firm years ago. Against my better judgment, I wrote back, "Who is this?" The reply was immediate. "I'm Chloe's ex-husband's sister, and I have some things you need to know." We met for coffee the next day. Jessica was a calm, steady woman with kind eyes that held a hint of old sadness. She laid out a story that made my own experience with Mark feel like a pale imitation of a much darker pattern. "Chloe has done this before," Jessica explained, her hands wrapped around her mug. "My brother, David, was her first husband. They were married for 5 years. She started an affair with a wealthy client at her marketing firm. It was messy. She convinced the guy that David was abusive, that she was terrified of him. It was all lies. She bled my brother dry in the divorce, using the affair partner's money to fund her legal team. She tried to get full custody of their son, Lucas, claiming David was an unfit father. I listened, my blood turning to ice. "She's a predator, Ilera," Jessica said, her voice low and intense. "She targets men who have something she wants: money, stability, a family. She plays the victim, creates chaos, and then swoops in to fix it. Mark is just her latest project, and from what I've heard, she's telling everyone that you're unstable and vindictive, trying to keep a loving father from his child." The pieces clicked into place. The therapist, the legal jargon about my hysteria. It wasn't just Mark's arrogance. It was a calculated strategy, a playbook written by Chloe. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Because I saw what she did to my brother, and I see her trying to do it to you. David is a good man, and she almost destroyed him. No one should have to go through that. She's not a stepmom. She's a monster. I left the coffee shop feeling strangely empowered. Jessica's story hadn't just validated my anger. It had given it a focus. This wasn't just a personal betrayal anymore. This was a fight against a calculated, malicious campaign to paint me as the villain in my own story. That night, I called Susan. They're not just posturing, I said, my voice firm. They're building a narrative. They're going to try something on the day of the birth. I can feel it. Then we'll be ready for them, Susan replied, her tone matching my own resolve. We'll have a court order specifically barring Chloe from the hospital floor. We'll have security alerted. Let them try. They'll find out what a real storm looks like. As I hung up the phone, I felt my son kick a strong, reassuring thump from within. He was a part of me, a reminder of what I was fighting for. This was my delivery, my body, my son. And I would be damned if I let a monster and a coward turn it into a circus. The storm was coming, but I was no longer afraid. I was the storm. In the final 2 weeks before my due date, an unnerving silence descended. The barrage of legal threats ceased. The manipulative emails stopped. Mark and Chloe seemed to have vanished, retreating into the shadows. My lawyer confirmed that their side had gone quiet, a strategic retreat after our last, ironclad response, which included a formal restraining order request against Chloe for harassment. A fragile sense of peace began to settle over the apartment. Maya and I fell into a comfortable rhythm, a domestic routine centered entirely around the baby's imminent arrival. We filled the freezer with pre-made meals, washed and folded tiny onesies until they were stacked in perfect, soft piles, and triple-checked the hospital bag. The nursery was my sanctuary. A pale gray rocking chair sat in the corner, a soft, hand-knitted blanket draped over its arm. The crib I had once struggled with now stood proudly assembled, a testament to my own strength and independence. The room was ready, filled with love and anticipation, untainted by the drama that raged outside its door. Do you think they've actually given up? I asked Maya one evening as we sat in the nursery. My hands rested on my huge belly, feeling the gentle rolls and kicks of my son. Maya looked up from a book she was reading aloud to my stomach, a children's classic about a brave little bear. Honestly? No, she said, her expression serious. People like that don't just give up. They don't have the capacity for self-reflection or shame. They're not being quiet because they've realized they're wrong. They're being quiet because they're planning something else. Her words sent a familiar chill down my spine, but she was right. Their silence wasn't a white flag. It was a coiled snake. He wouldn't, I whispered, more to myself than to her. He wouldn't dare show up at the hospital after everything. Mark on his own? Maybe not, Maya said, closing the book. He's a coward at heart. But Mark being puppeteered by that woman, she's a different story. The information Jessica gave you proves that. She thrives on confrontation. She wants an audience. She'll try to turn your birth into a stage for her drama. We solidified our plan. The hospital had been notified in writing, complete with photos of Mark and Chloe. The head of maternity ward security, a kind but firm woman named Carol, had personally assured me that my birth plan, which explicitly stated who was and was not allowed entry, would be enforced without exception. Maya's name was down as my sole birth partner and advocate. We had done everything we could. Now, all we could do was wait. The waiting was the hardest part. Every twinge, every cramp sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. Was this it? Was the battle about to begin? One night, a series of sharp, painful contractions had us rushing to the hospital, my heart pounding with a mixture of terror and excitement. After 3 hours of monitoring, however, they subsided. Braxton Hicks, a false alarm, the universe's cruel dress rehearsal. Driving home in the pre-dawn quiet, I felt a wave of exhaustion and despair wash over me. I can't do this, Maya. I sobbed, the tears I've been holding back finally breaking free. I'm so tired of fighting. I just want to have my baby. I just wanted to be peaceful. Maya pulled the car over and turned to face me, her expression fierce with love. Listen to me, Alara. You are the strongest person I know. You have survived betrayal, divorce, and a psychological war, all while growing a human being inside of you. You're a warrior. This last part, this is just noise. When the time comes, you won't even see them. You'll only see your son. I'm going to be your bouncer, your bodyguard, and your handholder. I will not let anyone or anything ruin this for you. I swear it. Her words were the armor I needed. I took a deep breath, wiped my tears, and nodded. Okay, I said, my voice steady again. Okay, let's go home. 3 days later, I woke up at 2 a.m. with a dull, persistent ache in my lower back. I tried to shift positions to go back to sleep, but the ache began to wrap around my abdomen, coming in slow, rhythmic waves. This felt different. This was not a rehearsal. I lay in the dark for an hour, timing the sensations. They were getting stronger, closer together. A quiet, certain knowledge settled over me. It was time. I slid out of bed and walked to the nursery, the moonlight casting long shadows on the floor. I stood over the empty crib, my hands on my belly, feeling the powerful tightening of another contraction. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel anger. All the noise from the outside world, all the drama with Mark and Chloe, faded into an insignificant hum. There was only a profound sense of purpose, a quiet before the flood. I was about to meet my son. I walked to Maya's room and gently pushed the door open. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Maya, I said, my voice calm and clear in the stillness of the night. It's time. Let's go have a baby. The hospital was an oasis of calm efficiency in the dead of night. We were checked in quickly, and the nurses on the maternity ward were warm and professional. My contractions were still manageable, and a sense of surreal excitement settled over me. Maya was incredible, a whirlwind of calm competence. She dimmed the lights in our birthing suite, put on a playlist of soft music I'd chosen, and unpacked our bag with quiet efficiency. The first thing we did was speak to our primary nurse, a woman named Linda with kind eyes and an air of authority. We handed her a copy of my birth plan and the legal notice barring Chloe from the premises. I want to be very, very clear, I said, pausing to breathe through a building contraction. My ex-husband, Mark, and a woman named Chloe may try to get in here. They are not to be allowed on this floor. Under no circumstances are they to enter this room. They are a security risk and are causing me extreme emotional distress. Linda nodded, her expression serious. I understand completely, Alara. I've read the notes in your file. I will post a sign on your door, and I will personally brief security and all staff on this floor. Your safety and peace are our top priority. No one gets in here without your express permission. You have my word. Her assurance was a balm on my frayed nerves. For the next few hours, I was able to focus entirely on the monumental task at hand. The world shrank to the four walls of the room, to the rhythm of my breathing, the steady rise and fall of the contractions, and Maya's constant, comforting presence. She held my hand, fed me ice chips, and whispered encouragement in my ear. This was how it was supposed to be, intimate, sacred, and safe. But the peace was not destined to last. As the sun began to rise, my labor intensified dramatically. The pain was immense, a primal force that took over my entire body. I was in the zone, lost in the work when there was a soft knock on the door. Linda entered, her professional smile looking a little strained. Alara, she said gently, there's a situation. A man and a woman are at the nurse's station. They're demanding to see you. A Mark and a Chloe. Ice flooded my veins, a cold dread that cut through the heat of my contractions. I told you. I gasped, clutching Maya's hand. They're not allowed. I know, honey. And we told them that. We told them you have a strict no visitors policy. But they're refusing to leave. He's shouting about his paternal rights. And she's crying. They're causing a major scene. Call security, Maya said, her voice like steel. Call them right now. We have, Linda assured her. But they somehow managed to get the elevator code from a visitor on another floor. They're on the ward. Just then we heard it. A commotion down the hall. A man's voice, loud and insistent, and a woman's theatrical sobs. My heart seized. They were here. They had breached the walls of my sanctuary. The door to my suite was pushed open, and there they stood, framed in the doorway like a villainous tableau. Mark's face was a mask of self-righteous fury. Chloe stood just behind him, her face streaked with perfectly mascara-stained tears, her hands clasped as if in prayer. She was a caricature of a concerned partner. Alara, this has gone far enough. Mark boomed, taking a step into the room. You can't do this to me. I will not be locked out of my own son's birth. A massive contraction ripped through me, and I screamed, a raw, involuntary sound of pure agony. The sight of them, the sheer violation of their presence, sent a spike of stress hormones through my body so potent it felt like poison. Maya was on her feet in an instant, a human shield between me and them. "Get out," she snarled. "You are not welcome here. You are trespassing." "We are here for the baby," Chloe whimpered, trying to peer around Maya. "We just want to be part of this beautiful, blessed moment. Please, Elara, don't let your anger poison this day for all of us." Her words, so manipulative, so dripping with false piety, snapped something inside me. Through the haze of pain, a white-hot rage gave me a moment of pure, unadulterated clarity. I lifted my head from the pillow, my eyes locking with Mark's. "This is not a blessed moment for you to witness," I growled, my voice low and shaking with fury. "This is my medical event. And you," I shifted my gaze to Chloe, "you are the poison. You have no place here. You have no right to see my child. You are nothing to him. And you," my eyes snapped back to Mark, "forfeited your rights when you chose her over your family. You're causing me distress during labor. You're putting my health and the baby's health at risk. Now, for the last time, get out." My voice echoed in the room. Mark looked stunned, as if he'd never expected me to fight back so fiercely. Chloe's fake tears turned into an ugly, contorted grimace. Just then, 2 large security guards and our nurse, Linda, arrived, effectively blocking the doorway. "Sir, ma'am, you need to come with us now," the first guard said in a calm but non-negotiable tone. "This is outrageous." "I'm the father," Mark bellowed, his face turning a blotchy red. "You are disrupting a medical procedure," the guard stated flatly. "You can discuss your rights with the police downstairs. Right now, you're leaving." As they were physically escorted away, Chloe threw one last parting shot over her shoulder. "You're a hateful, bitter woman, Elara. You'll regret this." Then they were gone. The door clicked shut, and an immediate, profound silence fell over the room. The ugly tension vanished. I collapsed back against the pillows, trembling and exhausted, but victorious. The battle was over. I had won. Linda came to my side, her face full of concern and admiration. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that," she said, checking my vitals. "You were incredible." I looked at Maya, who was wiping tears from her own eyes. I took a deep, shuddering breath. The external war was finished. Now I could focus on the only thing that mattered. "Okay," I said, a new strength surging through me. "Let's get back to work. My son is waiting." With the venom of the confrontation gone, the birthing suite once again became a sanctuary. The energy shifted, becoming focused, powerful, and intensely personal. There was no more drama, no more shouting, no more past. There was only the present moment and the monumental task of bringing my son into the world. Maya was a rock, her voice a steady anchor in a sea of overwhelming sensation. The medical team was supportive and respectful, creating a shield of feminine strength around me. And through the pain and the effort, I found a strength I never knew I possessed. Every surge was a reminder of what I had fought for, the right to have this moment, to create a peaceful entry into the world for my child, free from the chaos and toxicity that his father had tried to force upon us. This was my final act of protection, my first gift to my son. At 10:47 a.m., after a final, heroic push, he was here. A wave of relief, so profound it was almost dizzying, washed over me. Then I heard it, a loud, healthy, indignant cry. They placed him on my chest, warm and wet and perfect. He was so small, yet so solid. I looked at his tiny, scrunched-up face, his dark tuft of hair, and his little fists flailing in the air, and the world, for the first time in months, made perfect sense. All the anger, all the heartbreak, all the fear, it all just melted away, replaced by a love so fierce and all-encompassing it left no room for anything else. "Hello, Liam," I whispered, tears of joy and exhaustion streaming down my face. "It's me. It's your mama. You're safe now." He quieted at the sound of my voice, his tiny head turning towards my heartbeat. In that moment, a bond was sealed, an unbreakable promise between a mother and her child. We were a team. It would be him and me against the world, and I knew, with a certainty that resonated in my very soul, that we were going to be just fine. The next 2 days in the hospital were a blissful, sleepless blur of feeding, changing, and simply staring in awe at the miracle I held in my arms. Maya stayed with me, fending off the well-meaning nurses and ensuring I had everything I needed. The room was peaceful, filled with the scent of baby powder and the soft sounds of newborn. It was a world away from the ugly showdown that had taken place just outside the door. We didn't speak of Mark or Chloe. Their names felt like a foreign language from a country I never wanted to visit again. They had no place in this new world I was building with my son. On the afternoon before we were discharged, my phone, which had been silent for 2 days, buzzed on the bedside table. I glanced at the screen. It was a text from Mark. My first instinct was a familiar jolt of anger. But as I looked down at Liam, sleeping peacefully in my arms, the anger felt distant and unimportant. I was no longer that broken, weeping woman. I was a mother. My priorities had been fundamentally, irrevocably rearranged. Curiosity won out. I opened the message. It was short, stripped of all the previous arrogance and entitlement. It was the message of a defeated man. I heard he was born. I'm glad you're both okay. What's his name? I stared at the words for a long time. I could have ignored him. I could have sent back a torrent of rage. I could have used this moment to punish him for the hell he had put me through. But what would that accomplish? Waging a war would only keep me tied to him. I was finally free. Liam deserved a life of peace, not one overshadowed by his parents' animosity. A boundary, however, was essential. I thought carefully, then typed out a simple, factual reply. Liam, 7 pounds, 8 ounces. He is healthy and perfect. I didn't add an exclamation point. I didn't add a photo. I didn't ask him a single question. It was a statement, not an invitation. It communicated everything he needed to know and nothing more. It was the new language of our relationship, civil, distant, and centered only on the logistical facts of our son. All future communication would be on my terms. I put the phone down and didn't look at it again. As I gently rocked my son, the afternoon sun streamed through the window, illuminating the fine dust motes dancing in the air. I looked down at his perfect face, at the rise and fall of his tiny chest, and I felt a profound sense of peace settle deep in my bones. The storm had passed. The battle was won. I had walked through fire and had not been burned. In fact, I had been forged anew. I was no longer just Alara, the heartbroken wife. I was Liam's mother. In our new beginning, a life built on love, strength, and unwavering protection was just getting started.